Welcome back to another edition of Gary's Record Collection. We're going into the soundtrack portion of the collection today, going back to 1978. One of the three massive soundtracks recorded by and composed by John Williams. We are going to talk about today The Man of Steel, Superman the movie. Oh, what a great record. And here's the Man of Steel himself, Christopher Reeve. Oh, that was just an amazing movie and an amazing soundtrack too. And believe it or not, I actually did not have that on record to begin with. I had it on, oh yeah, that's right, 8-track tape. There it is. I had the 8-track first. This was great because, now I must confess, I did not see the movie in the theater when it came out in 78. I didn't see it until it was on TV in, I think, maybe 82 or early 83. And they played an extended cut, really, over the course of 2 nights. So it was like a 4-hour movie or whatever. And we had just gotten a beta VCR, believe it or not. And boy, oh boy, I was thrilled to get this on tape and watch the whole thing. It was amazing. The music was amazing too. And I actually was exposed to the music before the film because we played the main title to Superman in marching band when I was a freshman in high school, which was the late 70s. And so I was familiar with the themes there. So it was like we played it in school. I went out and got the tape, and it was amazing. We're going to start with the main title, which is just tremendous. And it just has that majestic sound to it that you know something huge is coming. It's funny, if you watch the movie, that little part right before the main title starts right here, that was repeated twice. So when you hear it on the movie, watching the movie, you're like, it doesn't match the soundtrack. They did a little creative editing. And there's a little something coming up here too that I remember from band, which was they must have transposed it differently. So this goes da 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 da. Well, when we played it in school, it was like da 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 da. So there was like a little bit of a hold in that too, and I always remember that even all these years later. And in this part in school, believe it or not, the Star Wars theme was played by the low brass throughout here. For some reason, it was like, why are we conflating 2 movies? But it was all John Williams in the end. It was great. And the love theme from Superman, in the main theme. We're going to get to the love theme here right now. Let's skip ahead to that. Now, this actually is on the album twice. This is just the love theme from Superman by itself. And then you look on like side 3, and it's the flying sequence and Can You Read My Mind, which is what this melody is. And if you remember from the movie, Can You Read My Mind was narrated by Margot Kidder, and it's like that on the album too. And I gotta say, I didn't care for it. It's like she didn't have the voice for a great narration. It came off as thin and tinny. And I remember hearing on the radio, Can You Read My Mind by Maureen McGovern. I thought that was actually recorded for the soundtrack itself, but come to find out it was not. It was just a cover version afterwards, which went like to number 52 or so on the Billboard chart. I just like this because it's just had that great orchestral sound to it. And it does indicate that love theme, that secondary theme to the majestic main theme from Superman. Want to move on now to one other thing before we talk a little bit more about the music. This is probably my favorite track on the whole thing. This is called March of the Villains. And we heard this in the movie when Lex Luthor's assistant, he was just like, what was he, walking down the train tracks and doing all of that, this goofy stuff and eating a hot dog or whatever. It just has that feeling of the sidekick of the villain. This was not like the Lex Luthor march. It was Otis, man. It was like, that's all it was. And if you listen to this is the brilliance of John Williams. This does not sound like it would be out of place in like a classical piece like Pictures in an Exhibition. This has that really great Russian motif in it. It's like, put it in, like slip it into a concert somewhere, and people aren't going to know the difference because it just has that great sound to it. It's like Tchaikovsky or like I said, Mussorgsky, Pictures at an Exhibition. This would be perfect in there, and I just like the way this sounds. It's perfect for the villains. It's not over the top, but it just has that sound to it that signifies these are the bad guys. So this music too went through a whole bunch of different stages. So we've got the soundtrack from 1978 on 2 records. It's a 2-record set. So all right, here comes the 80s and the CD era. Well, they had to chop 2 songs off it because if you remember when CDs first came out, like the upper limit was 74 minutes. It's like no more than 74 minutes on a CD because they don't think they'll play on the players. That got bumped up to 80 minutes several years later, but by then Warner Brothers had put out Superman the movie, the soundtrack, and had to chop to 2 songs, and we figured that's all we were going to get. Well, maybe there'll be a reissue later. Well, here's the problem: they couldn't find the tapes. They couldn't find the master tapes after a while. And it was like, we were going to do it, and now it's like, we can't find it. So what you have is what you get, which was just unfortunate because this music is so fantastic. However, good news, they did started finding tapes in 2000, and they got, there was a 2 CD set put out by Rhino Records, and then there's something called Film Score Monthly. They put out an 8 CD box set of Superman the Music, newly restored score, alternate sound cues. So they started finding all of these other tapes. And then finally in 2019, La La Land Records, which by the way is a great title of a company just by itself, they put a 3 CD set out, which includes all the music they found. They finally found like the multi-track masters, mixed it, and made this great 2 CD set of all of the music they had. Plus, they took those same tapes and made the original, they took the original soundtrack from 78 from the new tapes. So they went back and made the edits and the mixes and everything and made like the definitive version of the soundtrack. And it was a limited release. I think 5,000 copies were only distributed. So it was put out for $40, I think. And now, if you look at it, if you get it for under 100, you're doing pretty good. It has sold much more than that. But it's well worth it because it's Superman, the movie. Christopher Reeve, it was like the best Superman movie ever. It's like, it still stands the test of time. And the music, John Williams. Look, this was Superman. He had Star Wars in 77. He also had Close Encounters of the Third Kind. So like those three movies right there, all in the span of 2 years, it was just incredible. And then he, did Indiana Jones, and he did all this other stuff too. And it's just amazing. And we're not even talking about Jaws in 75. So John Williams was like outstanding. It's like whatever he touched turned to gold. And you need it when you're dealing with the Man of Steel. So there it is, Superman the movie, the original soundtrack from 1978. I find an 8-track player and get this thing, get it in there and see how it sounds these days. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you next time on Gary's Record Collection.